The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the happiest season of all, with those holiday greetings and gay happy meetings when friends come to call. It's the happiest season of all.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and X-Zone TV and our affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, South America, the Pacific Rim. Let me see, Australia, Asia, Africa, Europe, right around the world. This is the X-Zone, and we're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Kenneth Passan, and we're going to be talking to Kenneth about his book, Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. Kenneth has studied criminology since 1973. He's written articles for Forensic Nurse magazine and realized that with additional material, he could expand them into a book, which he began in 2005. Now, the book includes the basics of forensics, violent crimes, and what happens after an arrest. There are also chapters about victimology, so readers can decrease their risk of being a victim of violent crime. Once again, the name of the book is, all right, do you have your pencils and paper ready? Because this is a great book for a Christmas present. Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available at some border stores, borders.com, amazon.com, and barnesandnoble.com. Joining me now is Kenneth Passan. Hey, Kenneth, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hi, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Tell me, you're a forensic nurse. What does a forensic nurse do?
Well, forensic nursing is a brand new specialty in nursing.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of them us around right now, although there's more than there was a year or two ago. It basically has to do with a mixture of nursing with the law. That's what forensics indicates. For example, there are forensic nurses who are not certified,
mm-hmm.
but who do one type of forensic nursing, working with court-ordered psychiatric patients in certain facilities. In other words, these psychiatric patients have been ordered by the court for commitment, and usually the nurses who are in charge of treating them or help with treating them they're called forensic nurses. But there's also other different types of forensics nurses as well. Some states allow forensic nurses to go to crime scenes, do crime scene investigations, collect evidence, because a certification requires training in that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there are nurses who work with lawyers in civil as well as criminal cases regarding the legal paperwork involved. Some nurses do investigations for these lawyers pertaining to certain aspects of whatever cases they're working on. And sometimes a forensic nurse if they're involved in a criminal investigation or at a crime scene, can testify in court as a witness, expert witness. There's also other types of forensic nurses that may not be certified, but they are as a forensic nurse, but yet they can be considered what's called SANE nurses. SANE stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner. The majority of them, of course, are female, because these are nurses. They may not be called a forensic nurse, but if they're trained and certified as a SANE nurse, they could, if victims of sexual assaults brought into the hospital, they are usually the ones that would collect the evidence from the victim.
Gotcha.
As well as collecting evidence from the body of the victim herself, as well as the clothing and any other evidence that may be on the clothing.
All right, Kenneth, please stand by. You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. X-Zone Nation, Kenneth Passan is our special guest. He's the author of Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available at some Borders stores, Borders.com, Amazon.com, and BarnesandNoble.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back in 2 minutes as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten.
Kenneth Passan is our special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. He is the author of Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available at Borders.com, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and some Borders stores. Before we went to the commercial break, you were telling us what a forensic nurse actually does. And would the forensic nurse at a crime scene work alongside of the CSI group, or would she be incorporated as a member of the CSI, he or she, I should say?
Not many states generally don't use forensic nurses at actual crime scenes. Certain states, like the one I'm in, Connecticut, the smaller states mainly, but there may be some other larger states too that usually require only sworn police officers to be at crime scenes to collect evidence. Those type of people that they only allow. Now, there are other states, for example, like Florida, I'm not sure about Texas, that do have civilians, like either they're forensic nurses or they're trained civilian CSI people to go to crime scenes. They don't have to be sworn officers, but they have to be trained in that, and whatever their requirements are to get the job, of course, depends on what state they're in. So you don't see too many forensic nurses at crime scenes in many states, even though we're trained in that. There's a lot of states that kind of like, because it's so new too, a lot of people are not aware of all the different roles that a forensic nurse can play. So it's hard for them to adjust and get somebody like a forensic nurse into a crime scene. Connecticut or Rhode Island will probably never use them, although there is one person who is a forensic nurse. I don't know who that person is, but I heard they're in the state, that they do go to crime scenes and they do collect. They're a forensic nurse, but they also collect evidence at crime scenes. But as it turns out, that person is a sworn officer as well.
How different is the training to become a forensic nurse than it would be for a regular registered nurse? Whoops.
Well, a regular nurse basically starts out in nursing school. Could be anywhere from, if they're a registered nurse, a minimum of 2 years. So many nurses go for the direct bachelor's, which is 4-year degree in nursing. And then they go on, they're trained in different specialties during their school period. When they get out and get their license, then they can determine which specialty they want to start out with working as a regular nurse. Because forensic nursing is so new, they should have, to become certified in it, they have to go for at least a year's training with some school which specializes has a forensic nursing program. There's not a lot of schools that have that. Certain ones do, and that's where it requires some kind of research on the part of the nurse who is interested in getting into that.
Now, do you think that we're going to see more and more of the expansion of nursing roles in the future? For example, now there's nurse practitioners, and there are some nurse practitioners that actually man walk-in clinics. They're allowed to write a limited number of prescriptions. So do you see the nursing profession widening its horizons?
There's always room for expansion, and I think there's more, in my opinion, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I get the impression that there are more regular RNs getting involved in advanced nurse practitioning. Because there's more responsibility, not to mention more money, but it kind of like connects more with closer to medical type work rather than nursing type work. There's a mixture of the two. The advanced nurse practitioner can prescribe medications under the supervision of a physician, can give physicals, whereas the RN cannot actually do all that. They have to go for the special training and the advanced degree. So regular RNs stick with nursing. Advanced nurses can go, they have regular nursing, plus can do a little bit of the medical as well, under the doctor's supervision.
Tell me, why did you decide to become a forensic nurse?
That's based on my passion for criminology and forensics. And because of my past experiences working in the criminal justice system, that's always been there. And I've, even though I got into nursing, the crime part, the criminology and forensics were actually my real passions. And because I couldn't really get involved directly with those two fields in this state, I decided, well, why don't I see if I can try for something where I can study some forensics, crime scene investigations, and go to a program where I can mix my nursing with training for that. And basically, it really hasn't helped me get a job as doing that. However, it's expanded my knowledge to such an extent that I can teach, and I can write books about what I've learned. And so it's been a great experience for me. And anybody who's interested in this type of thing, I would, of course, recommend that and get the training if they're interested in doing this kind of nursing.
The name of your book is Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. What was your inspiration for writing your book?
Well, basically how it started out with, I started writing the articles for Forensic Nurse magazine, which at the time was putting out paper magazines, and then I think they stopped the paper a couple of years ago, but they still do it online. They publish online. And I decided, well, let me see if I can get something published through them, because I wanted to write, and I wanted to write what I knew. So I started with them, picking one subject, and it was accepted and published. And then I chose 3 other subjects, and they were all accepted and published. And then after the paper magazine went out of existence, I decided, well, I've got all these articles written, well, and I've got them copies of the paper articles here, but why don't I just do something with them and expand? So that's when I started thinking about the book part, and I decided to go ahead and expand on it, write the book, include those articles in there with some expansion, and I kept on going and going and going until I had enough for a book. And it was hard work. It took a long time, but my previous writing didn't go to waste.
What are some of the topics that you wrote about? For example, did you discuss cases, or was it policies, procedures, investigative techniques?
What it includes is, for example, like in the first section of the book, it's part 1. It talks about some of the most frequently used forensic sciences. Now, there's a lot of different specialties of forensic sciences, and the book doesn't talk about every one of them because there's too many. Many of them are not used very often. But, for example, fingerprint analysis, how fingerprint came into being and why we have fingerprints, is included in the book, bloodstain patterns and interpretations, and other types of forensic evidence. That's all in part 1. And that kind of leads into the next section, which is the largest section in the book, Violence in the Criminal Mind. It talks about how criminals may start out committing crimes on what's called a crime continuum. It then goes into various the subsequent chapters about pedophiles. There are different classifications of pedophiles. Psychopathy, or also known as antisocial personality disorder. It starts leading in toward the cases. Stalking, cyber-stalking, victimology, kidnapping, some of the more serious violent crimes. It gets gradually more violent in nature as far as the crime, talking about the different crimes. And serial homicides, serial rapes. It's kind of like, it's very informative, detailed, because there's different categories of certain types of criminals, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. So that's what this main section is about, part 2, and it does get into various true crime cases, and certain serial criminals, serial killers. They'll talk about maybe 1 or 2 cases involved with that. Cults, bombers, terrorists. Not all the chapters have true crime cases, but many of them do.
Tell me, why do we have fingerprints?
Fingerprints, basically, well, they're mainly used for, the idea was for grasping and holding on to things. Now, it's kind of hard to think of us having fingerprints and holding onto a glass or a can or something where it's very slippery. How do the fingerprints help? We really don't think they help. But that was the idea, and the creation of man is for the fingerprints to help with that. Now, when you think about the primates, like gorillas, chimpanzees, they may have these also. I don't know 100% for sure if they do, but, they have hands too, like we do. And so I would imagine that they would have some kind of grasping markings on their fingers to hold on to things. And that's why that's basically why we have it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Kenneth, you and I have to take a commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Great sharing with you this evening here in the X-Zone. X-Zone Nation, Kenneth Passan is our special guest. He's the author of Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Borders.com, and some border stores. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network, and we're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Our toll-free worldwide number is 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Kenneth Passan and I will be back on the other side of the news as we continue here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell.
Greetings, X-Zone Nation. This is J. Allen Danlick from OurCuriousWorld.com, and I would like to wish Rob, Laura, and all the worldwide listeners of the X-Zone Nation a very Merry Christmas and a healthy, prosperous, and spiritually fulfilling New Year.
Exonation, Kenneth Passan is our special guest. He is the author of Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available online at Borders.com, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and some border stores carry it. In your opinion, Kenneth, what is the most interesting part of being a forensic nurse that you enjoy doing more than anything else?
I would say, well, the forensic part. As much as I enjoyed nursing, and I was mainly a psychiatric nurse for most of my years, the forensics has always been my passion. I've done I was a fingerprint examiner in the past, and I still have expertise in that, and I did a little bit of teaching in that not too long ago in my graduate studies, so that's always been with me, and that's my favorite. This would be my specialty. If there were jobs here around my area asking for forensic nurses versus other specialties, that's the one I would pick because of the forensics part.
Where is there the greatest demand for forensic nurses?
Well, it's not around here. That's a good question. I don't know. I know that, the school I went to for my master's in forensic science was in California, and California being the largest state, I would imagine that if there are forensic nurses out there, which I imagine there would be, they may have more use for them there than they would in a small state like Connecticut or Rhode Island. I'm not so sure that the New England states have certified forensic nurses, although there are many of us around, scattered around throughout the country. As a matter of fact, there's an international association of forensic nurses, which have conventions and other events going on, and they usually get in touch with forensic nurses that they know of throughout the country to announce these events. So there are many more of us around than we realize. I just haven't seen any more of my type of nursing around this area. Those nurses who are involved with forensic type nurses are usually sane nurses around, and mainly the emergency rooms in the larger hospitals in Connecticut. And that may be the same way in other states as well. And there's not a whole lot of them that do go out to crime scenes, at least not in New England, but maybe perhaps in the larger states which have them. We might use some of them.
Why does the size of the state have any significance as to whether or not there's forensic nurses or not?
It's not necessarily the size of the state, and the only reason I mention that is because it's a larger geographical area requiring more. I mean, I get the impression, and I've never lived in a real large state, but usually, and I found like in California, there's a lot of forensic people, more than in my state. And with that larger number of forensic people, there's likely to be more forensic nurses. Not that there is, but there's more likely to be. California, Texas are two of the largest states. Alaska being the actual largest state of the whole country, I'm not so sure has them. So that could be the largest state and still not have very many of them.
I would imagine
it all depends on the population and the number of large cities, et cetera, et cetera.
You mentioned cyber stalking before. Is cyber stalking a growing problem, and how can a forensic nurse help?
Well, cyber stalking I believe, you don't read about it too much in the papers now, but it's an ongoing problem. I think since the computers came out, and everybody's got computers now, including the predators. The predators can use it and remain anonymous, stalk people without being identified, and some of them have even gone so far as to coax the victim into meeting them, which has caused serious problems for the victim.
And of course, now with the small handheld devices, the cell phones that you're able to actually text from or send emails from, I'm sure that cyberstalking is presenting law enforcement officials with some new challenges.
Oh, absolutely. The problem with the cyberstalking is that a lot of times, because the predator using that tool to stalk a person or to coax a victim into their net, it makes it more difficult for law enforcement to identify them, because they can get into a certain website or a blog or whatever, and you remain anonymous, call themselves a different name, give themselves, a man might give himself a female name, and the victim that they're targeting would never know that. So basically, whoever's talking on the internet, they're really not know who they're talking to, especially if it's a stranger. And with this texting and the little handheld computers coming out now, I think that would create even more of a challenge for law enforcement, because now you have not only the desktop computers, now you have a lot of people walking around with pocket computers.
Sure. So what would the role of a forensic nurse be in when it comes to either assisting law enforcement or gathering evidence for a cyber stalking crime?
Well, that's they may not be used as much for that.
I see.
Because when you get a forensic nurse out there, they're not a police officer, they're not a detective or investigator. What they're doing is they're using whatever scene they go to of a crime where some of their nursing skills can be used in addition to their forensic skills. For example, you're not going to find a drug overdose at a scene where there's a computer involved and no actual victim. But when you go to a crime scene where there's a victim lying on the floor, and the victim is, of course, deceased, and there's foam coming out of the mouth, and there's bottles of medications all over the place, that's when a forensic nurse can be used to determine, well, it may be a drug overdose. They take a look at the medication bottles and see what meds they were on.
But isn't that the job of the medical examiner?
Well, the forensic nurse is not really examining the body. They'll look at the body and see possibilities, and this is what the training is for. Look at the bottles of medications, basically to see if there might be a connection. The forensic nurse is not going to determine if there is a definite connection, only a possibility, and to see if there was. They can mainly help out the medical examiner. For example, in Florida, they have medical investigators for the medical examiner.
Yes.
Now, some of these medical investigators in Florida may be forensic nurses. They may not be. If they're not, then they have to receive special training. If they are forensic nurses, they already received some training, official training, to become certified in that. So that's where their skills can come into use. They're the eyes and ears of the medical examiner, so that the medical examiner does not have to keep going out to look at a body. They can send out the medical investigator, who may be a forensic nurse, to take a look at the body, to take notes, to ask questions, to do an investigation for him or her. So when they get back to the medical examiner's office, they can report all their findings, and then the medical examiner takes it from there. In this state, Connecticut, I don't think Rhode Island has it, we don't have, to my knowledge, medical investigators, civilians, who go out and do that for the medical examiner.
Would that be up to the homicide squad?
The homicide division of police departments, mainly the state police, would go out. Their job is not to examine the body and turn it over and look at what may be the cause of death. Their job is to investigate what happened, determine, the various possibilities of the causation of what may be been the cause of death, but staying within the realm of the police protocol. It's up to the medical examiner to determine the cause of death. And most of the time here, the medical examiner will go out or send his associate examiner out to look at the body. The police don't touch the body. Their job is to check the crime scene, collect all the evidence, document, photograph, question possible witnesses. And while they may be doing that, the body will be examined by the medical examiner.
And it's only once the medical examiner, in fact, the medical examiner is the only person who can actually touch a body at a homicide scene.
Basically, yes. At least in this state, they can. Now in Florida, you have the medical examiner who's been I can't think of the word for it, but they've been assigned by the medical examiner to look at the body. The medical investigator will not examine the crime scene. He'll look around and see, where he is, be aware of his surroundings so that he won't touch or mess up any evidence that may be surrounding the body. His job is to look at the body and see if, rigor mortis, check for rigor mortis, liver mortis, some of the other things that indicate death, certain death. Document all that before shipping the body to the morgue. That's how it normally works. It doesn't happen in 5 or 10 minutes. It could take, any amount of time, whatever it takes to determine, to get all the information the medical examiner needs.
Let me ask you this. I'm sure everyone listening tonight has seen CSI or NCIS, the forensic procedures that they use. How close to reality are the TV shows when it comes to forensics?
Shows like CSI are, in much of what they do, are fairly accurate.
Really?
What they do in the laboratory is generally what may take place. They may not show everything that goes on in a criminalist's laboratory. But, and I've only seen the show once, but when I saw it that one time, these criminalists were going out jumping over fences and going through people's yards and going through houses and stuff. They generally don't do that. Criminalists who are the actual scientists in forensics, they normally stay in the laboratory. The evidence is brought to them, specially packaged and marked according to a chain of evidence, which must be very pristine. And their job is to examine the evidence. Let the evidence tell them what they see and what may be indicated.
Something that interested me when I was reading the information that you were kind enough to send us was the word victimology. What is victimology?
Victimology is the study of the victim of a crime and everything about the victim. It's important because, when police have to investigate a homicide, the victim can no longer speak, can no longer tell the police anything. So the police or any other law enforcement agencies involved have to know who the victim is before they can determine who the perpetrator might be. And they get to know everything about the victim, through fingerprinting, through DNA, through forms of identification like driver's licenses, if they're available. And once they know who the victim is, and sometimes it's pretty difficult because they get these cases where the bodies are burned beyond recognition, so it makes it more challenging for the forensics people and the medical examiner. But then you have DNA, so sometimes they can get the DNA that might help determine who it is. And so it's a process where once they know who the victim is, then the police can expand their investigation to start questioning who the victim knew, family, friends, acquaintances, people he or she worked with. And that's when the investigation keeps on expanding until and as they collect more evidence and collect more witness statements, it could bring them closer to finding out who did it.
Very interesting. Kenneth, please stand by. You and I have to take our final break. X-Zone Nation, Kenneth Passan is our special guest this hour. If you'd like to find out more about this book that we're talking about entitled Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind, www.barnesandnoble.com, www.amazon.com, www.borders.com, and his book is available in some Borders stores. Kenneth Passan and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X-Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. I'll be right back. Nation, Kenneth Passan is my guest this hour. We're talking about Kenneth's book entitled Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available at fine bookstores as well as online at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Borders.com. Tell me, Kenneth, how can one prevent or protect oneself from violent crimes such as muggings, burglaries, or home invasions these days?
Well, one of the many things, for example, is, if one is outdoors, be aware of your surroundings at all times. If at night, don't walk alone. Don't walk around areas where there's a lot of possibilities for, where there's shadowy areas. This is especially for females. Females are more likely to be assaulted than males. That's in regards to muggings, possible outdoor assaults. As far as burglaries, when one is not at home, keep all the doors and windows locked at all times. If going away on a vacation, of course, have some kind of lighting that comes on a regular basis, automatic lighting, set up to go on at a certain time. You don't want to give anybody indications that nobody's at home, especially for a lengthy period of time, because that will be a clue to certain criminal element that somebody is probably not home. No lights have come on for the past 2 or 3 days. Mail has been accumulating at the mailbox, which is another no-no. One should at least arrange with the post office to hold the mail, to hold any newspaper deliveries. Don't give any indication whatsoever to possible burglars that nobody's home. And this pertains to any area. It doesn't have to be a bad area, so to speak, in cities. It could be anywhere. I live in a fine area right now, and I saw a couple of years ago, I saw somebody walking in the back. They were casing the house.
Wow.
This really happened about 2 or 3 years ago at my house here. And the guy saw me looking at him, never came back, but the doors were locked. The back door was locked. And so this is safety should always be kept in mind. Nothing should be taken for granted, no matter how safe you think you're in. With the home invasions that have been occurring, they're on the increase, much more so than they were 3 or 4 years ago. And if you recall the case in Cheshire, Connecticut, the home invasion, where the family of a doctor was murdered and the house burned down. That's an extreme example of this kind of home invasion going on. That's where there used to be sanctity in the home and safety. Mm-hmm. That's kind of gone by the wayside now. The criminal element has become bolder, and of course, people in certain areas are complacent, have become complacent, and feel they're safe, and so they don't have to worry about it. But
Kenneth, I hate to do this, but we've just run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you very much for joining us, and from everyone here at the X Zone to you and yours, a very Merry Christmas and a safe, healthy, happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you and to everybody and all my listeners.
All right. X Zone Nation, Kenneth Passan has been my guest. He's the author of Forensics and the Violent Criminal Mind. It's available at Amazon.com, Borders.com, BarnesandNoble.com, as well as in some border stores. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past as we continue here in the X Zone.